I still can't drive at night. My friends say I'm just being dramatic, that I'm letting my mind get the best of me. But none of them were there that night, that endless night when something beyond human chased me through the Arizona desert. When I'm alone, I can still feel it watching me, waiting somewhere out in the darkness. I've tried to forget, tried to convince myself it wasn't real, but the memory of it, the details that still haunt me, won't let me. It was mid-January, a bitterly cold night as I left Flagstaff to head home. The sky was an endless black, heavy and silent, pressing down on my old car as I drove the pitch-black roads. I was one of those people who didn't scare easily, always the first to laugh off ghost stories, the last one to flinch during horror movies. But something about that night, that drive, felt off from the beginning. The air felt too quiet, too still, like the desert itself was holding its breath. The first hour went by smoothly enough. The hum of my car was the only sound, and I had barely seen another vehicle. I kept an eye on the road, mind wandering, until something caught my attention just up ahead. At first, I thought it was just a stray animal, a deer, maybe. But as I got closer, I noticed that it wasn't like any deer I'd ever seen. Its body seemed too thin, almost skeletal, its skin stretched tight over bone, and its eyes glowed in the darkness, reflecting my headlights with an unnatural, almost human intelligence. I slowed down instinctively, but as soon as I did, the creature bolted. It shot off to the side of the road, disappearing into the blackness, and I let out a shaky laugh, telling myself it was just a trick of the light, a desert animal frightened by my car. But something gnawed at me, a small voice in the back of my mind whispering that what I'd seen wasn't normal. For a few minutes, I managed to push the thought away, forcing myself to focus on the road ahead. But just as I was beginning to relax, there it was again, this time closer. It was standing at the edge of the road, staring at me as I approached, its eyes fixed on mine in a way that made my skin crawl. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me, not like an animal, but like a person, with a chilling awareness that made my stomach twist. I kept driving, faster now, not daring to look in its direction. But the moment I passed it, I heard a strange sound, like nails scraping against metal. I glanced in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see it, but there was nothing there, just the empty road stretching out behind me. I laughed it off, blaming my nerves, but as I turned my eyes back to the road, my blood ran cold. It was right there, just outside my window, sprinting alongside my car. At first, I thought I must have imagined it. There was no way it could have kept up with me. No way something that thin and frail-looking could move that fast. But there it was, matching my speed effortlessly, its bony limbs moving in a way that was both unnatural and mesmerizing. My foot pressed harder on the gas pedal, heart pounding as I pushed 60, then 70. But no matter how fast I went, it stayed with me, gliding alongside the car with a kind of grace that was almost beautiful in a horrible, twisted way. It was like it wasn't even running, but floating, barely touching the ground as it moved. And then, as if sensing my growing terror, it began to change. It happened so slowly at first that I didn't even notice, my eyes flicking between the road and the creature in growing horror. But as I watched, its shape began to shift, the limbs lengthening, the body contorting into something taller, thinner, more humanoid. Its skin seemed to stretch and pull, taking on a sickly, pale hue that looked almost human. And then it smiled. That smile, it's burned into my memory. It was a smile that no animal could ever make, lips stretching back to reveal a mouth full of sharp, too long teeth. Its eyes, which had once been like a deer's, were now cold and calculating, filled with a malice that sent a shiver down my spine. I could feel my hands shaking on the steering wheel, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps as I realized that whatever this thing was, it wasn't just some animal. It was something much older, something dark and unnatural, something that knew exactly what it was doing as it stared into my terrified eyes. I floored the gas pedal, pushing my car to its limit, the engine roaring as I hit 80, 90, 100. I thought, maybe if I went fast enough, I could finally leave it behind. But no matter how fast I went, it stayed with me, its face inches from the window, grinning that horrible, mocking smile. And then, as if to remind me of its power, it reached out, pressing a skeletal hand against the side of my car. The sound of nails scraping against metal filled the air, sharp and grating, like claws dragging over a chalkboard. I could feel the vibration through the door, a reminder that this thing wasn't just some ghostly apparition. It was real, solid, and it wanted me to know it could touch me. Panic flooded my mind, my vision blurring as I struggled to keep control of the car, desperate to get away. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't even scream. All I could do was drive, the terror gripping me so tightly that it felt like I was drowning in it. But just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, it vanished. One moment, it was there, grinning at me through the window, its claws digging into the metal, and the next, it was gone. I looked around, eyes darting frantically, but there was nothing, just the empty road stretching out before me, silent and still. I wanted to believe it was over, that I had somehow escaped, but deep down I knew it wasn't finished with me. I could feel it, a heavy weight pressing down on me, a dark presence lurking just out of sight, waiting. I barely remember the rest of the drive, my mind numb with terror as I sped down the road, not daring to look back. When I finally reached the lights of the nearest town, I pulled into a gas station, stumbling out of the car, my body shaking uncontrollably. The side of my car was covered in long, jagged scratches, deep gouges that cut through the paint down to the metal beneath. It was proof that what I'd seen was real, that something unnatural had chased me through the darkness, mocking me with its cold, calculating eyes. I spent the next few days in a daze, jumping at every shadow, every unexpected sound. I couldn't sleep, haunted by nightmares of that grinning face, those sharp, skeletal fingers reaching for me, and every time I closed my eyes I could feel it, lurking just out of sight, watching, waiting. I did some research, desperate to find answers, and stumbled upon stories of the Navajo Skinwalkers, ancient witches who could change their form, shifting between human and animal, cursed with the power to torment those who dared to look them in the eye. I read that once they mark you, they can haunt you for life, following you wherever you go, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now I know that's exactly what it's doing. I can feel it, even now, watching me from the shadows, its eyes cold and calculating, waiting patiently for the day it finally decides to finish what it started. And the worst part, I know that when that day comes, there'll be nowhere left for me to run. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like and subscribe. I will see you again next week.